suspect is a recently fired LAPD officer, Christopher Dorner. He is an armed domestic terrorist and has threatened to kill LAPD officers and our families. Please advise everyone.
Chris Dorner, the department now calling its former officer a domestic terrorist.
This is an act, and make no mistake about it, of domestic terrorism.
We will not tolerate this reign of terror.
About how, like any other jihadist or any other type of terrorist, the fact that he's willing to die makes him the most dangerous, and that is true, and that is why law enforcement is treating him like a domestic terrorist as they should.
Talking a lot about drones. There's been a lot of talk about the Americans using drones against people linked to Al-Qaeda, American citizens. You look at a case like this and Dorner. Is this a case where you would think sometime soon that we would use drones against American citizens? A case like this where he's trying to kill people?
Hello everyone, welcome to GGN. Today is Friday, February 15th, 2013, and I'm Darko. I'm going to continue with this story right now. Chris Dorner died of a single gunshot wound to his head. Autopsy results. Now, most of you, I know a lot of times that you've already seen this by the time I get to this, but I like to just put all the different stories that have been going out through the news cycle in the last week and try to tie it together a little bit better. A fugitive ex-cop, Christopher Dorner, was killed by a single gunshot wound to his head. This is the San Bernardino County Sheriff's that's reporting this. As the cabin where Dorner was hiding was going up in flames, deputies heard one final gunshot inside. Also, you have Dorner manhunt, incendiary, basically tear gas, reportedly used on cabin. So again, this is the same type scenario, which is weird because, like I was just talking about Waco, about how these cops, they just, whether this thing was like a Running Man incident where this guy was actually falsely accused of something, didn't even do it, or the whole thing was a PsyOp, didn't take place, I don't know. God only knows. I mean, even in alternative news, that's getting a little wacky now, so, with incidences not even supposedly happening and stuff like that. It's hard to really get to the truth here, get to the bottom of it. But like that first video said, there was two things that we should take away from this, which is one, he was treated as a domestic terrorist. Two, the possibility of drones being used against this domestic terrorist was also gone, went through the news feed. Whether they said, "Oh, this is a bunch of conspiracy theorists," it's planting the seeds, and that's how it works in these mass psyops. But I was just talking about Waco, about how they got pissed off that these people are just holding up in there, and that their best way to basically end the situation is to just set it on fire and have them come out and shoot them, or have them kill themselves, which they did, I think, in both cases. But then remember this one, audio catches cops shouting, "Burn this mother effer down" during Dorner siege, so they purposely did it. Police gave no warning as they mistakenly shot woman 71 delivering newspapers and then target another innocent bystander during the California manhunt for, quote, killer ex-cop. Emma Hernandez, a victim, says she had no warning before police opened fire. Her daughter, 47, was a passenger in the truck, was shot twice in the back and hospitalized in stable condition. So, also wounded by the shattered glass from the window. Damn, dude, look at this picture here, dude. Look at all those bullet holes. Jesus. Law enforcement officers look over bullet-riddled pickup truck after they mistakenly shot Emma Hernandez in the hunt for Chris Dorner. They're lucky they even came out alive, dude. And The Onion put out a story, Los Angeles on high alert as LAPD back on regular duty to protect and serve. It says here, Los Angeles residents are reportedly on edge today following reports that hundreds of armed and extremely dangerous LAPD officers are resuming regular patrolling duties after the conclusion of today's manhunt for rogue ex-cop Christopher Dorner. I mean, just knowing that they're out there is terrifying. How can I feel safe when these maniacs are on the loose in my neighborhood? Said visibly rattled Ashley Stilson, 38. To explain that she strictly observed the city's advisory to avoid the historically violent, unpredictable predators by going out in groups and avoiding the streets entirely after nightfall. These guys are volatile and in many cases mentally unstable. Something needs to be done about them because I fear for my family knowing that these sick people are still at large. Of course, this is The Onion, so. But this is real. Native American women, or basically I think they're from Canada, Native women fear Canada police, Canadian police, says Aboriginal. A spokesperson says Native women fear to report physical abuse because it is the police who are the perpetrators of the violence against the Aboriginal women. Quote, there is no way these women will feel comfortable going to their abuser and reporting to them a different officer had perpetrated them. So, yeah, you know, it's, in that case, you'd have to carry out, you know, your own justice or whatever, but then that would be considered vigilantism, and then you end up going to jail. So that's a video. Links should be posted. My internet's been getting jacked with a lot lately. Just dropping my internet connection. But here's another video you should go check out. Chris Matthews, Natural Rights and Second Amendment. People are racist. So here's this video on here on Thursday. That's exactly what former DC cop and MSNBC scriptreader Chris Matthews did. He called the NRA's Wayne LaPierre a racist for daring to defend the natural right of self-defense. Hurricanes, tornadoes, riots, terrorists, gangs, lone criminals, LaPierre wrote for the Daily Caller on Wednesday. These are perils we are sure to face, not just maybe. It's not paranoia to buy a gun, it's survival. It's responsible behavior, and sometimes we encourage law-abiding Americans to just do that. So, again, like I said, the NRA kind of represents the big manufacturers, gun manufacturers, to be honest with you. They're not the authority for gun owners or the Second Amendment, whatever. So, says he also wrote, the American people clearly see the daunting forces that will undoubtedly face terrorist crime, drug gangs, the possibility of Euro-style debt riots, civil unrest, or natural disaster. So it goes on here and it says, unfortunately, the NRA boss discounted the primary reason there is a Second Amendment and safely framed his argument, you know, gun owners are not buying firearms because they anticipate a confrontation with the government. Rather, we anticipate confrontations where the government isn't there or simply doesn't show up on time, he wrote. So you can go check it out for time's sake. I'm going to keep moving to this next video. It's only a minute clip, but this MSNBC crazy NRA statement has heavy racial overtones.
One issue that always boggles my mind is that the idea that a gun is a defensive weapon. That is a myth. A gun is not a defensive weapon. A gun is an offensive weapon used to intimidate and used to show power. Police officers do not carry a gun as a defensive weapon to defend themselves or their other officers. They carry a gun to be able to do their job in a safe and effective manner and face any oppositions that we may come upon. If it was a defensive measure, why did we lose 55 officers nationwide last year to gun violence? And unfortunately, in just the 2 months of this year so far, we've lost 2 officers to gun violence in the state of California alone. We deal with gun violence on a daily basis. We are asking and have been asking for reasonable regulations, not that are going to impact the legal gun owner. We're asking for reasonable regulations that will help us keep our communities and our officers safe.
It's funny because he says police officers don't use it as weapons, as a defensive weapon. They use it for an offensive, which is to intimidate, right? That's what they do. And he talked about the number of revenue collectors that were killed by civilians. But I like to see the numbers that, especially in LA and California, that were killed by revenue collectors, who didn't actually victimize anybody. They just offended the state. You know, when they say an offense, what offense? You offended the city of Los Angeles, or that you offended the state of California. That's what's so beautiful about those crappy political laws, not common law, but political laws, is that they can get you for doing something, and then they can get you for not doing something. So that's, I mean, when he's talking about reasonable, it's already unreasonable. The fact that you have to be treated as a terrorist if you carry a firearm, such as myself, in Indiana, I have a permit to carry, I have permission, right, a permission from mommy and daddy to be able to carry a spear. To defend myself. Now, if I go across this imaginary line with my spear, well, then I can be considered a definite terrorist by the Chicago Police Department. I mean, they even said, we'll shoot you on sight. All right, sorry about the audio there, but Missouri House Bill 545 would make possession of any or many semi-automatic weapons a felony. So, it says here that any person who, prior to the effective date of this law, was legally in possession of an assault weapon or large capacity magazine shall have 90 days from such effective date to any of the following without being subject to prosecution. So remember, we were talking about from that That forum of special forces, mostly Delta forces, had over 1,500 signatures by them saying that they don't support this basically legislation for gun control, and they were talking about how this term assault weapon is a political term or political description of it. Remove the assault weapon or large capacity magazine from the state of Missouri. Render assault weapon permanently inoperable. They're actually doing that to Marines now. Marines, of all people, are supposed to be like the most faithful. They're disarming them when they have these speeches and inaugurations and stuff like that. Even when Panetta went to go visit in Afghanistan, disarming the Marines there as well. Surrender the assault. So they don't even trust their own people. I mean, this is getting crazy. Surrender assault weapon or large capacity magazine to the appropriate law enforcement agency for destruction, subject to specific agency regulations. Unlawful manufacture, import, possession, purchase, sale, or transfer of any assault weapon or large capacity magazine is a Class C felony. A felony. Moving on, gun control measures approved by New Jersey Assembly Committee despite protests. An overflow crowd of gun rights advocates clashed with Democratic lawmakers today during the ruckus 7-hour hearings, and an Assembly Committee approved 20 bills that further restrict access to firearms and ammunition. So it says it's a laundry list of measures despite some outbursts from a throng dotted with NRA baseball caps. Again, see? These are people, right? These are people that want to carry their spares. Fuck the NRA, right? They don't speak for people, but they like to put this in this propaganda pieces like this. Camouflage clothing. Ooh, they're militaristic. They're going to rise up, right? Militias, that are hunters, right? And jackets featuring a coiled rattlesnake. Ooh, from the revolutionary flag. Ooh, revolution. It's what the powers that be want, right? At least 2 in the audience were ejected. Ooh, so they're unruly. They don't expect authorities. So I'm going to move on. It's making me sick. U.S. 5th graders admit to plotting to murder fellow students. And of course they're going to increase security. I saw a McClatchy article how they're going to beef up security in Connecticut. And but like I said, they're not going to address the issues of society and how screwed up we are and how far beyond being effed up we really are. I mean, this is damage being done every day to the psychology of human beings. Just damaged, traumatized. And all these shows, like just talking to a family member about another family member. I was just talking about a subject about this, about how parents just don't even care to let their kids watch stuff where necks are getting sliced and blown away and all this violence and swearing. And it's like nothing. Whereas before, maybe when I was a kid, you'd have to sneak to do that. But no, they don't want to address those issues. They don't want to address those issues. And instead, they just want to put them on medication, which is basically, it's the way they're acting, the way they're feeling as a result. It's the blowback from the eugenics and social engineering. So they, again, like everything else, like the pharma industry, health industry treats it, they treat the side effects, and they don't actually try to cure you. Basically, they treat the symptoms and not the disease. So they put them on antidepressants and stuff like that. And then when they get off them or they're on them, then they actually get suicidal and violent. And that's been proven. So it goes on here. It says 2 5th-grade students at this elementary school in a small town of Washington may be charged with conspiracy to commit murder after admitting to school authorities they plan to use weapons found in the backpack of a 10-year-old kid to lure another student outside the school and kill her because she was really annoying. She was probably maybe an independent thinker. I don't know. But this is how crazy it's getting. Was going to kill her with a knife, and then the other boy was supposed to use the gun to keep anyone from trying to stop me or mess up our plan, said a U.S. 5th grader. And they plan to harm an additional 6 students at the learning center. Probably they just weren't carbon copies, as Kurt Cobain calls them, like everybody else. Uproar after school checks kids' pants for poop. So school officials say nurses' search was made discreetly. So it says here that mystery pooper had 5 times left feces in the gymnasium, led the principal to ask the school nurse to inspect the 4th grader's underwear. So that's funny. My kid came home and he said his butt had been inspected, complained one parent. So, that class had been the ones using the gym with the feces appeared and didn't respond when the principal continually asked who did the deed. So, said the principal, I guess she defended the move. So one of the parents, you don't violate someone's civil rights just to achieve the ultimate goal. Well, they do. They're kind of the property of the state. That's why they're there, indoctrinating them. So you really don't have any rights in that respect. Thank you.